Hello, hello, you beautiful souls. Welcome to another episode of The Expanding Soul, a place where we explore growth, healing, and what it really means to become the best versions of ourselves. I am your host, Kristen, and today we're going to be talking about healing our limiting beliefs. Have you ever noticed how your brain can take one small moment and turn it into a full story about who you are? One comment, one look, one situation, and suddenly it's, I'm not good enough, or I'm falling behind, or there's something wrong with me. And the craziest part, we don't even question it. We just believe it as truth. In episode 1, we talked about the science of manifestation, or at least a quick version of the science. There's so much more we could probably get into with that. And what I learned did make me feel like it was possible to manifest, or at least train my brain to pay attention to certain things that would allow me to feel like I manifested. If you haven't listened to my first episode about that science of manifestation, definitely go check it out. But long story short, there is a part in your brain called the Reticular Activating System, or RAS, and its entire job is to filter what you pay attention to. Which means if you believe, I'm not good enough, your brain is going to find evidence to support that. But if you start shifting towards, I am capable, it will also start finding evidence to support that too. So anyways, I've been trying to do all the things. Gratitude journaling, journaling in general, redirecting my mind to a more positive space when it goes somewhere negative, reminding myself of all the impossible things I've done so far, and taking the action that I need to take in order to get the things that I'm manifesting. Given I am not exactly the most patient person. Guys, it's bad. I'm so impatient. I'm working on it really hard, though. Sometimes I feel like if things don't happen immediately, I'll just move on to something else and forget all about the first thing. I think a lot of us are like that, really. We treat self-growth like Amazon Prime. Like, okay, universe, I journaled twice and I said affirmations today. Where's my magic? But as much as my impulse would prefer that instant gratification, the best things in life are the ones that require patience and perseverance. Just like going to the gym, you don't get results instantly, but progress is made every time you go. This is a really good journal exercise, actually. Think of the most transformative periods of your life. What did it require for you to get through it? What did you gain from it that you wouldn't have gained without the struggle? I bet by journaling it all out, you'll find that the best things in your life are the ones that took the most effort, the most time, and the most determination. So if everything in life requires hard work, then manifestation probably does too. I think part of my problem is my limiting beliefs. While logically, yes, I know I've done hard things. I know I have enormous amounts of potential and I'm deserving of finding my peace. But somewhere deep inside, I have doubts. I have doubts that I'll never figure out how to run a successful business, or doubts that I won't find any more clients, or doubts that I'll be entirely healthy, entirely fulfilled. These doubts are like that little voice in your head that reminds you of all of your failures without mentioning any of the good that came of those failures. And if you really look at these, most of them aren't even facts. They're conclusions. Conclusions that we came to in emotional moments and then carried with us as truth. It's human to be self-critical. But being overly self-critical can just reinforce your limiting beliefs and restrict you from living a life of real happiness. And if you're going around feeling like you aren't doing enough, aren't contributing enough, aren't happy enough, you're putting out into the universe that that's what you want. So the universe will just keep giving it to you. Instead, we have to do the deep work, the work that we'd rather avoid. We have to dig into our fear and trauma and figure out what it is that's blocking our belief in ourselves. So how do we do that? Where do we start? That is what we will be discussing today, friends. How to heal your limiting beliefs. So before we get into how to overcome our limiting beliefs, let's first talk about what they even are and how to identify them. We all have limiting beliefs. These are those beliefs that we impose on ourselves or the world around us, and that we subconsciously believe is absolutely true. Believing in them can hinder our potential and what we believe to be physically possible. Some examples of this might be, I'm not talented or creative enough to be a real artist, or I don't deserve happiness, or I don't come from a wealthy family, so I can't achieve wealth. These are those feelings that we learn through childhood conditioning, past negative experiences or traumas, or from our society or culture. They can even be from somatic memory, which is your nervous system storing the memory of past traumas. These memories aren't like our normal memories where they just pop into our head to be remembered, though. They manifest as physical symptoms and emotional reactions that our bodies have learned to utilize in order to survive. Signs of a somatic memory might be something like chest pain, or bodily reactions, or shaking when severely stressed. These limiting beliefs, even unconscious ones, impact our lives by controlling our behavior, sometimes in ways we may not even understand in the moment. Let me give an example to bring some clarity. Imagine a young woman named Rachel, who is best friends with a woman named Laura. Every month they get together and walk through the park and just chat and enjoy the sunshine. One day, near the end of their walk, Laura interrupted Rachel and said, "Rachel, I really love you and appreciate you, so please don't take this the wrong way. But I'm really trying to keep my mindset in a higher place, and I'd really prefer if we could focus on more positive things when we talk." In response, Rachel is caught off guard and goes instantly into people-pleasing mode, saying, "Yeah, of course." And she kind of laughs it off in the moment. But later that night, she ended up laying in bed, replaying the moment over and over again. Her chest got tight, she started connecting dots that weren't even supposed to be connected, and she fell down the mental spiral of anxiety. It started with her wondering, wait, what did she mean by that exactly? And then she went into, was I being negative? And then, oh my God, I do this all the time. Of course no one wants to be around me. And then she just went down from there. Her false beliefs about herself allowed her to unnecessarily suffer. And had they not been there, Rachel may have instead seen that her friend was practicing really healthy communication. She was validating their connection while still expressing her needs, and that the fact that she was doing that in the first place was evidence of huge growth for Laura. Rachel may have even been proud of her and inspired to practice better boundaries herself. Is Rachel's reaction irrational or not understandable? Absolutely not. Rachel's reaction was likely unconscious and was something her nervous system was conditioned to do through Rachel's life and experiences. It's a completely human reaction and nothing to be ashamed of. But is it something that's restricting Rachel's life in a negative way? Absolutely. I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, have you ever had a moment like that? where something that could be small turned into an entire story about who you are? And that, my friends, is the power behind healing these limiting beliefs. The more we heal, the less we suffer, and the more we can achieve. There is plenty of evidence out there of people retraining their brains and healing these limiting beliefs, and then they go on to achieve things that they never thought were even possible, just from the power of belief. Now, when you partner the fact that healing your limiting beliefs can make you believe more in yourself with the fact that self-confidence is a high vibrating emotion that will attract more reasons to feel self-confident, it's easy to see how transformative this process can be. I kind of feel like the currency of the universe is moments of happiness and joy. Even people who want to get rich typically only want to do so because they want the happiness that comes along with it. They want the freedom to do what they want to do with their time, or the resources to have unforgettable experiences, or the feeling of walking into their brand new home. But sometimes people forget that the first step to achieving happiness starts in your own mind, and that by doing the things it takes to heal our minds, we will get compensated with that same kind of happiness just within us instead of external to us. And that happiness will help us achieve even more happiness. It's silly not to take it seriously. Personally, I've been guilty of not putting in the work for myself because of not wanting to face my past traumas. I was so afraid of reliving and re-experiencing those negative emotions. So in order to survive, I created the world's strongest wall in my brain. And I shoved all of those memories back beyond that wall and built it in my mind in a way that it would never come down. The base of the wall was steel, and then I encrusted the steel with concrete, and then I added another round of steel on top of the concrete and another round of concrete on top of that steel. This wall was impenetrable. But what started to happen was that in order to hide my pain away like that, I also had to hide away my other strong emotions, like love and joy. So I became numb. I was living life for years in this kind of survival shell where outside my body knew how to be social, how to laugh, how to have what other people felt like were genuine connections. And yet inside, I was completely numb. I wasn't not enjoying myself, but I wasn't enjoying myself either. I was just neutral. And then even my memory started to suffer from it because your brain processes and stores things by the emotions experienced during the event. So with me not feeling emotions, it was like nothing was happening. Friends would be like, "Oh yeah, do you remember that day when we went shopping and got those weird smoothies and did that stuff?" And I'm just like, "What? Are you sure that was me and not your other friend?" And I'm not even going to lie. I have totally lied and pretended I did remember a couple of times because the person just looked at me so disappointed and it just broke my heart. So even though I had this inescapable lockbox in my mind, the things that I was running from were still negatively affecting my life. So at some point, you just have to ask yourself, do I want to suffer and end up not remembering or enjoying my life? Or do I want to suffer a little and end up loving every second of my life? Either way, you're going to be suffering, but one way includes a little less suffering and a lot more laughter and love and life. I guess that's something that no one ever really tells you. Healing isn't really about removing pain. It's about changing what that pain gives you and how it presents itself in your life. Healing hurts, but not healing hurts longer. Okay, Now we have decided to heal our shit, right? So, how do we do it? How are we going to fix these limiting beliefs, especially when we don't know what they all even are? Well, as with all good things, I think we get there through time, patience, and persistence. Throughout the rest of our lives, we'll identify and adjust the limiting beliefs, then identify and adjust some more, and then some more. It's all a part of the journey. I have a little exercise that I want to walk you through. So if you're not in a place where you can do it, save this episode for later and come back to it. I've broken the process of healing limiting beliefs down into 5 stages: awareness, separation, reframing, evidence building, and reinforcement. So the very first stage is awareness. After all, we can't fix a limiting belief that we aren't aware exists, right? At first, we're going to identify as many of our limiting beliefs that we already are somewhat aware of. It's okay if you can only think of a few things at first. And it's okay if you get overwhelmed and need to stop and come back later. Listen to your body and do it however makes sense for you. We're going to take out a piece of paper and write down all the limiting beliefs we already know we have. It may be related to money, like I don't deserve to be rich, or money is hard to come by. It may be related to your own self-worth, like I always mess things up. It may even be related to your body, like by saying I'll always struggle with my weight. Whatever these things are, just be open and honest with yourself. It's normal to have limiting beliefs, and it's badass to try and change them. Now I want you to go grab your favorite color pen that's different from the pen color you have been using. And next to each of those limiting beliefs, draw an arrow and write what you would like to believe instead. So if your limiting belief is, I'll fail if I try, you might want to write instead, if I try, I'll surprise myself with how well I'll do. But it has to be something that you believe to be possible. As you work on healing the ones that you do know about, start paying attention to any repeated thought patterns or assumptions that may come up and add them to the list as well. Phase 2 is separation. We need to separate ourselves from thinking these things that are on our list are factual and know that they don't represent who we are. They represent what we believe. And by starting to work on it, we've already made the largest step. In order to practice this, make a habit of looking at your list often. Keep it fresh in your mind, what you're wanting to do, so that your brain learns how big of a priority it is. In phase 3, we're going to work on reframing the limiting belief. So pick one of your beliefs and get out a new piece of paper. Draw a line right down the middle. At the top of the left column, write your limiting belief. For this example, let's go back to the story of Rachel and Laura and say that Rachel's limiting belief is that no one enjoys her company. So in the right column, in another color, whatever color makes you happy, write what you want to believe instead. For Rachel, that might be, everyone loves being around me and thoroughly enjoys my company. Now go back to the first column and reflect a little bit more on why you feel this way. Ask yourself, why? Is there any evidence behind why you feel that way? Is the thought based on actual proof, or is it more of an emotional reaction? For Rachel, she may write that her first serious friendship ended in a terribly hurtful way, where she got ghosted. But through journaling, she may realize that she didn't necessarily get ghosted because her and her friend didn't have fun together. She got ghosted because her old friends started drinking every night with her new boyfriend, and that just wasn't Rachel's scene. So that really doesn't count as evidence that people don't enjoy being around her. And then she may reflect on her conversation with Laura and realize that Laura specifically said she enjoys her company. So that's not really evidence either. The point is to ask yourself enough reflective questions for you to come to this aha moment. Once you have that aha moment, you're going to proceed into phase 4, which is evidence building. So move back into the right column and start reflecting on how you're going to achieve the belief that's there. So for Rachel, it would say that people love being around her, right? So start to write all of the reasons that that's already true. Rachel might write down that Laura had specifically told her that her friend from before had always laughed and had fun with her, that her best friend at work laughs at every one of her jokes, and that she's able to make connections with people at every social event she goes to. I bet by listing all of this out, you'll find that you have much more evidence that what you want to believe is true than you do for what you actually believe is true. So now you're going to start the final phase, which is reinforcement. You're going to have to continuously remind your brain to start thinking the more positive belief. Start reflecting on things you can do to change your mindset and beliefs. How can you reinforce this new positive outlook? Rachel may write down that she can be more aware and monitor when the thought comes into her head. She can plan to read her list of evidence anytime she may feel that way. And she can continue gathering evidence to support the fact that people really do enjoy being around her. And then the last thing I'll have you do in that right-hand column is create a list of affirmations that you will redirect yourself towards whenever you catch yourself allowing that limiting belief to come up. Just 3 or 4 things that you do believe are true. If your affirmation feels fake or unreachable, your brain is going to dismiss it. So if, for example, you write down, "Everyone loves me," but it's just not resonating with you, instead write something positive that feels true when you read it. Maybe something like, "There are people who genuinely care for me." Rachel might plan to redirect herself towards saying things like, "There are many people in my life who love to get together with me, and I'm a great friend, and I deserve to have great friends." Let's go ahead and do a quick one together. If you can't now, save this for later, and just hit pause whenever you need to. Go grab a piece of paper and a pen, or 2 pens if you're like me and enjoy the color variations. Now draw a vertical line right down the middle of the page. On top of the left column, write your limiting belief. Now on top of the right column, write what you'd like to believe instead. All right, now go back to the left column and reflect. Why do you feel this way? Where did this belief come from? What is this belief saying about you? Is there any evidence to support that this belief is true? Now go to the right column and reflect there. What evidence do you have to support the wanted belief is true or possible? What qualities do you have that align better with the new belief? How does what you've written make you feel? Now, the last step in that same column, write down 3 or 4 affirmations that you believe to be true that you will redirect yourself towards whenever the limiting belief tries to resurface. Good job. All right. Now that you are done, how do you feel? I know for me personally, this exercise makes me feel kind of relieved, or like a weight has lifted, like I'm on the right track to figuring things out and it's all going to be okay. The more that you catch yourself, the more you redirect, and the more positive affirmations you repeat, the more your brain will automatically start to push the positive thought into your consciousness rather than the negative one. It's all about repetition and consistency. But let's say you did this kind of journaling once a week for a year. Where do you think your inner world would be a year from now? Where do you think your level of happiness could be? What about your finances? Pause for a second and imagine a version of you who doesn't believe that these things are true anymore. A version of you that wakes up without constant doubt, that trusts themselves, and that moves through life with confidence instead of fear. How does it feel to be them? How much have they achieved without carrying around all of that worry? What kind of life do they live? For me, the life my future version is living is more than worth fighting for now. No more running for me. What about for you? That's all I've got for today, friends, but thank you so much for being here. If this content has really inspired you, or if you want to share your journaling experiences with me, I would love to hear it. Feel free to message me on Facebook or Instagram at The Expanding Soul. I should be on TikTok here soon as well. If there's someone in your life that you think should hear this information, it would mean the world to me if you shared it with them. And if you haven't already, I would be forever grateful if you left me a review. Thank you, and talk to you next time. Bye.